Okay, let's look at this startup fever here. Woo. So first off, I can't do this thing justice, and I know some people always get pissed off about my lighting when I do these reviews, but you know, the hell with it. This really isn't a video for any reason other than you know, I can't put an audio review up because that would work just fine. Plus, I want to show off, you know, my brilliant sense of bad lighting choices. I seem to have accumulated a couple of people who like to give me a thumbs down on everything now. It's kind of doesn't make a difference to me, but it kind of pisses me off just because when I see a couple of thumbs down on something, I wonder, oh, is there something wrong with the video now? You know, if it's like my Civilization 6 titled video, yeah, I know why that gets lots of negative thumbs. But if I can't figure out what's wrong with it compared to my usual side of things, it kind of bugs me. Now, it's fine if people are like, well, they don't agree with my opinion and they thumb it down. That's cool, you know. Then I can kind of understand why that's happening and whatever, you know. Or once something kind of goes up on Consim World, sometimes people who aren't used to them take a look and are like, especially with the intro, and are like, what the hell, what is this? This isn't even a review. No, it's not supposed to be. Unfortunately, it gets publicized as such. I don't know what it should be called. There's really no answer, but except that both John and I are happy with the idea of my video actually being embedded there. And there's nothing else to start with but the intro. And there is a review somewhere at the end of the whole thing. And a lot of people think. Anyway, I guess it's time to actually start this. So, in the wrap, I compared this to kind of multiplayer backgammon. And I think that's why I can't give this a fair review, not having played it in the proper circumstances. Normally I can understand a game solo. This one I can't tell you for sure, say whether I'd like it, you know, much less how much you would. I can give it a review in the sense that I can give it a critique of the elements that I think disturb the crap out of people, why it got kind of a low rating overall. But also what I think might be a great deal of fun. Okay. So, people seem most upset, I would say, by the fact that it's almost, you know, there's a very, very heavy luck element in this game. Now, personally, I like a lot of luck in a game, but for me, the heavy luck element kind of falls apart because the game actually, it doesn't backload the luck element the way a couple of games do. I think Urban Sprawl kind of did that. I can think of I remember a couple of times saying, you know, Bullfrog Goldfields. That's sort of my poster child for backloading the luck. So like it starts out, there's not that important a luck, but right at the end of the game, the most important luck factors come in so that everybody's kind of within range of each other, and then one big action takes things out. Well, this game has luck going throughout it. However, it's a multiplayer game with that sort of balance of power dynamic that allows people to keep the game really, really close. So any luck factor at the end is going to probably determine the game. Granted, you can play poorly and end up out of the game. There's no question there in terms of just, you know, you're so far back, you've so mishandled things, you don't have a clue what's going on, right? But if everybody's kind of playing at about the same level, well, why shouldn't a game end in luck that way? Well, okay. But it's a pretty broad span of same level in my view. Maybe even broader than, say, the coin games allow for. And certainly broader than, like, Here I Stand with. So, essentially, if you play at a certain level of competence in the game, and I don't think you can do too much beyond that, and I'm not saying I reached that, but I have the feeling that everybody could reach a certain level of competence after a couple of games of this, where it really does just come down to the luck at the end of the game. Because you have this strong balance of power mechanism where people are constantly able to take away more from their opponents than their opponents are able to gain. They need not do so, but if as a group somebody's pulling ahead of that group, everybody can pull them down very easily. There's a very easy catch-up mechanism in the game. Well, more than one. There's a whole deck full of cards that are filled with nastiness to do to people. You have the lawyers if you're playing with the Kickstarter edition or the Kickstarter version, which allow you to kind of target other people to some extent. Maybe not as much as everyone. But the biggest thing is, on every single one of your company's turns, you roll a die and you do that much damage to their prices or to their value. Now, you do have some limitation. You can only do 2 to any given product line, but on each die roll that you do. But that's, if you're playing with more than 2 or 3 people, there's a tremendous capability of bringing down anybody who runs off as a leader. Enough so that any amount of luck at the end is going to determine the game. And clearly there's going to be luck at the end in a game that's filled with luck throughout. This is not going to appeal to your average Eurogamer. At least modern Eurogamer. When I think about some of the older Euros, like Damfrost, man, that game's just full of luck. And it is sort of this kind of press your luck, roll dice, try to beat the other person type of game, kind of like, say, Rail Baron is or something. And that can be very exciting and a lot of fun. And I think this may be a light enough game, as Damfrost is, that it actually could be a lot of fun. I feel like Rail Baron has too heavy a burden on the players in terms of the damn charts more than anything else, and also it's too long. But this feels about right for this kind of lots of dice rolling. On top of the dice rolling, though, you got the cards. They've got a lot of take that type qualities to them. You bastard, I think there's a lot of room for a lot of revenge play going on in this sucker. So overall, I think, this could be kind of a lot of fun with a fairly low effort. And again, not quite the backgammon multiplayer, but that kind of feel where you're making decisions that do matter. There is a lot of room for strategy in this game. There is a lot of room for decisions. I see things that I would have done very differently after playing it once. The same way I did with, say, Le Havre, where I had to kind of learn the system a little bit. And now I feel like, well, if I sat down to an opposed game of it, which I'll probably do with my wife, she's interested in it, and I think she'll actually like it. And I think I'll like it better opposed than I liked it solo, which is different from most games. So yeah, I think there is something good here, and I think it just happens to be kind of at odds with what most of the people at Board Game Geek like. And unfortunately, that it was sold as more of a Euro. The production quality. First of all, you start putting little cubes in something, you're just saying, hey, modern worker placement type Euro type thing, or action selection or something like that. This isn't. This is something very different. This is a game where you're moving around a track for victory points, and you're rolling the dice and adding a bunch of modifiers for how far you get to go across that track. There's a lot of strategy in trying to optimize your movement on that track based on the fact that you're going to get a die roll, but you get certain mods. And to optimize other effects that'll move you on that track, things like the competition, etc. So you've got a number of different routes to worry about here that kind of mesh together nicely. It gives you a decent amount of strategy, and it gives you a tremendous amount of luck within that strategy. But again, I think your average Euro player is going to say, there's just too much luck in this. I want the kind of luck that's in. I don't even, most of them don't even like Settlers of Catan because maybe it comes down to too much luck once you've played it enough times. So they want something where they can kind of do the optimization, come up with a strategy, follow it. There'll be slipped little issues within it, but the game's not going to rock back and forth based on the luck. They also don't tend to like the amount of negative actions that you can take in this. I don't think this is a fantastic game. I just think it would be a fun way, to kind of spend in a couple hours with a bunch of people who are, having a good time. I think if you overanalyze it, things are going to get really ugly because people will be trying to count all the time and stuff like that. And it probably isn't worth it with the amount of luck. The components are fantastic. You get these little metal things, which I think a lot of people make a big deal about. They look great. They're not really that impressive, and they kind of make it harder to pull the things out. But, they're kind of a classy addition to the design, so whatever. I mean, everything's got to have its own little thing. The cards, I got my gripe on the cards. This is my biggest gripe. These are kind of stiff cards. They're hard to shuffle. You saw that in my game. The cards didn't really get randomized very well at all. They all kind of clustered together. And that, I think, is going to be a regular problem with it where, okay, look, if you sleeve them, you can't shuffle them no matter what, right? But if you have unsleeved cards, yeah, they should have a little bit of flex to them. These guys don't. The map and the counters, these guys remind me of Pandemic. They've got this silky texture to them. I can't feel it through the bag. I want to. And the board kind of has that same texture too. So clearly, the kind of they use the same production quality as at least the version of Pandemic that I have, which is very pleasing tactily. The rules, not great. I'll tell you that much. In particular, this isn't really the rules themselves, but the cards. They're all basically, many of them are rewritten in here. There are a few that aren't, that should be. The ones that don't trigger immediately are rewritten in here. And, what's covered in here is what you need. What's on the cards doesn't always handle what you need. Sometimes you actually feel, I actually felt like I was getting a different impression, or a different answer from the actual rules than I was from my impression of the cards. The little Kickstarter thing, yeah, this is a gripe for me. There's no question. This adds pieces to the game. It adds play quality to the game. I think the game's fine probably without them. But the lawyers add another factor that's kind of interesting. The extra event cards, they're really just a matter of kind of adding something to screw with once you add the lawyers and the stock shares. The stock shares are something I did not get to explore. My first impression was you don't want to turn these into money and then try to score them as victory points early in the game, because they'll end up, you'll end up looking like you're ahead and everybody's going to beat on you then. That's probably the truth. Maybe a more long-term plan wouldn't be affected that way. But here's the thing. There is a point in the game, towards the end, not at the end, when I think converting those shares into money to do a bunch of poaching of enemy pieces, especially when it's economically viable. They're in maybe the 2 space or something. You can grab a bunch of pieces at once. Or in order to do a marketing campaign, at the end, if you're set up to be able to do that. I think in those cases, it might be well worth doing. The marketing campaign is the most, the competition at the end of each turn is the most random piece to the whole game, because you're talking about a net 18-point swing. Right? Yeah. Between the top player and the second player in a particular competition. And that, what we saw in my game was the guy who came in first in a competition actually had the lower chance of coming in first. He had a couple of, he was behind in the total pluses on that side. But anyway, that's a huge swing in victory points. By 18-point swing, I mean 18 of these boxes, but these boxes are always worth at least one victory point to you. So you've got a lot of potential points there. Those stocks are only worth 5 victory points each, but the money that you make is based on where you're located on the chart when you turn the stock in. So unless you're turning it in late in the game, you're not going to get a lot of value for it. And if you are turning it in late in the game, it turns out that unless it can go into winning you the competition somehow, it's probably not going to, it's not going to be cost effective. I think I should have cashed some in though, either on the second to last turn or the last turn of the game, because I wasn't looking too carefully at how the competition actually plays out. So that's a side of the game that I think there's a lot more room for exploration on. But there's still, cards that at the end of the game are so valuable. Now you can wait, if you're close to the end of the game, hold on to one of these and not use it up early. Just because there's no way, well, you may not know when the game's going to end though if you don't use it early. Which is to say, if you're not ahead and somebody has a leak card and can end the game with that, that adds another level of dynamic uncertainty to where the game's going to end. If the person who's in the lead can force the game to an end, and they can do that after the competition when it's obvious that they're going to win, well, then people who didn't invest a little bit of effort in keeping their score kind of high are going to be kicking themselves because they could have stopped that win. Anyway, I think there's a lot to say about this game. I don't think it's a bad game at all. I think it was treated a little poorly by the community. However, I can't be absolutely certain until I sit down and play it, with a couple of people. I think it's probably, again, this is just reaching off the top of my head or pulling it out of my ass. My guess is it's probably best in like 3 or 4 players. 5 or 6 players, you've got too much balance. 2 players, I would guess somebody runs away with the game. But 3 or 4 feels about right for it, and that's about the, that's a nice number of people for a game of this sort. I don't think having 6 people around the table on something like this, unless there's beer involved, is a terribly good idea. There'll be too much downtime for the type of game that it is. All right. Well, anyway. I think I'll send this one up.